Hi, and welcome to this clip. My name is Nilsen, and I'm from Traditional Taekwondo Ramblings, and today we're going to look about the possibility of joint locks within Poomsae. Now, most Kwan founders, the people that were responsible of the different schools that together made the modern style of Taekwondo, they often studied with or had some kind of connection with Gichin Funakoshi, the founder of Shotokan Karate. In one of his books, he basically says that striking techniques are not the only kind of techniques in karate, and he lists a whole bunch of different joint locks and throws, and then he says, and this is very interesting, he says that all of these joint locks and throws and sweeps can be studied by referring to the basic kata or hyong. So the founders of modern Taekwondo, the Taekwondo we practice today, they learned in Japan that there was more to the forms than only the blocks and the punch and the kicks. There were all kinds of fighting techniques and self-defense techniques within Poomsae or hyong, and they brought this knowledge back to Korea. What we can ask ourselves is whether these founders taught these kind of techniques to their students, who again made our modern style Poomsae, the Taegeuk and Palgue and Judanja Poomsae. Now in Taegeuk Oh Jang, number 5, you have one interesting elbow strike. You do an outward block, and immediately after you step forward and you do a round elbow strike, but you don't pull the other hand back to the hip, so you end up in this kind of position. Now, many students ask, why at this instance do you not pull your hand back to the hip? Why just now you have the hand up here? Why not pull it back? And indeed, in Taegeuk Paljang, which is number 8, you do see that. You have the round elbow strike into a back fist, but now the hand is pulled back to the side. One quick way to explain this is as a joint lock. So the way we are going to see from the Do Jang footage is from a wrist grab, but it can be from a trap, or you pin the hand of the opponent to your hand. There could be any number of ways to get into the position, the entry for the joint lock that I demonstrate in the clip. So don't get too hung up on the fact that it starts from a wrist grab. The wrist grab is just, for reference, a starting point. I would also like to add that in our modern Poomsae, you do have at least 2 instances where you see joint locks explaining the basic techniques of the Poomsae. In Pyeongwon Poomsae, if you were to look up in the Kukyuan textbook, in the application section of the Pyeongwon Poomsae, you have an Hechu Samtul Maki, where you spread your arms up like this. And the way they explain this is to inflict the elbows of an opponent that has you in a bear hug underneath your arms. So you underhook, and then you use this motion to hyperextend both of his elbows. So you do see that Gichin Funakoshi taught the founders of the Kwan that joint locks were indeed within kata or hyong, the forms that they learned. And when you look at the fact that even in modern Poomsae, in the official explanations, there are joint locks within the official explanations of Taekwondo Poomsae, you can't help but wonder whether the transmission of knowledge from karate to the founders of the Kwan that later would become Taekwondo to their students were much larger than you'd think when you see the mainstream application. For instance, if you go back to Pyongwon Poomsae and the Hecho Santul Maki, what you often see as an explanation for this thing is as a block of two different opponents, one from each side, that do a lunge punch or two side kicks or whatever, and you just block it like this. Now, there are many unrealistic applications within the Kukyuan textbook, and I don't agree that their explanation of the Hecho Santul Maki is the most efficient or the best application. I think it can be done better in a different way. But it is an interesting example of joint locks being within Poomsae. So if you look at the clip, you will see a joint lock explaining the end position that you reach in Taegeuk Oh Jang.